the male has no outlet that is seen by the world as okay. Yeah. Like for a man to come forward. From the ashes, everywhere we go, our life be flashing. 'Cause you alive, yes you alive, you be alive. As you dancing off the ashes, rise from the ashes. So everywhere that we go, our life be flashing. 'Cause you alive, yes you alive, you be alive. As you dancing off the
buy them stuff, trying to keep them, out of harm's way.
At bay.
At bay. And it just got worse because the more that you give, the more they take, and you can never give enough. So you find yourself trying to just survive. So it's always the one that's been in an abuse situation have a tendency to say what they won't tolerate, and they've been tolerated. Oh. And then the one that is abusing don't see themselves being abused because they think, well, that's the norm.
Right.
My thing is, why do the good people keep meeting the bad people?
I don't know, but that is a God question. You have to ask him about that. But I do understand what you're saying, and I've seen it over and over again. We've seen it over and over again. And I think one of the most deepest heartbreaks for me is to see a man diminished.
Yeah.
It's just something about seeing a broken man. I mean, I understand brokenness in anybody is bad, but to see not just a man, but a good man, torn down and I call dismantled or dismembered piece by piece by the words of a woman because she's angry or because she's not getting her way or because she's trying to manipulate or trying to control the situation. To me, that's got to be one of the saddest things to see.
Well, the saddest thing when people see it and they don't say nothing.
Right.
I just, this is just one of the realities. I mean, my life is an open book from this experience because I recall many times how I would come to the church smiling, but when I got back in that car, I knew I was going to be facing this same situation again. And because I was trying to protect the image of the church and not have that misunderstanding of who I was, I tolerated a lot. And then one day I woke up, I realized when my clothes were put in the bathtub, clothes and covered with clothes rods, iron threw at me and stuff like that, windows bust out of my car, I realized then this is a little further than I need to endure, because as a pastor, you don't want people thinking that you're not taking care of your home. The scripture said he don't take care of his own household, it was an infidel. Mm-hmm. So you trying to process this and you trying to maintain this role, but the reality is every day of my life I was broken until that day I woke up and said, this is enough, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. And even though when I didn't do it no more, now it's in that the whole world came against me or the church. But I'll tell any man, if you're in an abusive situation, you owe no one nothing but get up out of there. It's not going to change. It's not going to change.
Well, unfortunately, that is what we're talking about, is that the male has no outlet that is seen by the world as okay. Yeah. Like for a man to come forward and say, I've been in a domestic violence situation, I'm in a domestic violence situation. The stigma behind it is that you're a weak man. When in actuality, we all have feelings, we all have a heart, we all have, sensitivity. And when someone is attacking you mentally, spiritually, physically, you can get broke down. But for some reason, we treat, and we start them, the males off young, desensitizing them as if they don't have a right to feelings, to be hurt. Like when a little boy fall down and hit his knee or something. Oh boy, get up! You a boy. You supposed to be.
You don't cry, yeah.
Does the cement feel different to the girls than it do the boys when they scrape it up? Because to me, it looked like the same kind of scrape.
It hurts.
It hurts. But for some reason, we tell boys that they can't have feelings, they can't be hurt, that they can't be sensitive to pains and things that's happening to them, and then they come up feeling as though they have to suppress that, and it goes haywire. Either they become what I say, someone who is disconnected from their sensitivity and act a monkey, or they end up being one who is dominated by someone that's telling them what they should or should not be able to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So it's like understanding the difference between what is abusive and what is love.
right,
Love doesn't hurt. Love
does
doesn't break your spirit. Love doesn't confront you in front of your peers. Stuff like that. It's so many things that goes on with this domestic violence situation. And all domestic, it's not so always the physical, it's the verbal. It's a verbal abuse. It's a lot because now you've been challenged as in your manhood. You've been called out your name. Y'all say a woman call her name. Well, you can call him out of his name too.
Right.
By diminishing him, you know,
Right.
especially from his children. So
and I think, you know, because a man is told from young, you know, that he has to be a man, and for a woman to tell a man you're not a man,
Yeah.
you're not a real man,
or compare him with another
compare
man.
him with, you
Yeah.
know, this is what a real man,
Look like,
and then look, and it's just so juvenile.
Mm-hmm.
But when a person is doing it, it is to harm and it is to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, we can't wrap our minds around that's abusive.
A woman doing it to a man.
A
yeah.
woman is abusing a man when she does that. You can't, and even this we have to be very careful with. We have to be careful when we compare our husbands to our fathers,
Yes.
because you're basically diminishing that man by telling him that he doesn't add up or measure up, and that can be a tear down and a rip as well.
Yeah, it can. That's why it's important that you don't do the comparison chart. You got a good man, take care of him, love him, and thank God for him.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, this normally is one of those church experiences because in the church, most men in the church that are really rooted in this thing are not going to really act out a certain way toward their wife. They really try to, play it to the left. But it's coming to a place now that you're seeing a lot of men coming forward saying, hey, I'm done. Can't do this no more because of the ongoing, behind the scene abuse. I mean, the most abused people are always protecting the abuser.
Right.
By saying, oh, no, she don't feel well today. Truth is, she don't want to be around nobody.
Right.
So he don't want to say that, so he covered it up by saying.
He's the nice guy,
Yeah.
and so he doesn't want people to know that behind the scenes she's saying, I don't want to meet this person. I don't want to talk with these people. I don't want to, them in my house or something like that. And then he ends up coming back making excuses for his abuser.
He come back lying.
Well,
yeah,
that's what it is.
Excuse, yeah.
He makes excuses because he's ashamed, first of all, that he doesn't even have the authority, to let's say, have guests or company, and that he has to make excuses for his wife, who is mean-spirited toward him, and anything that he might want to do.
But the sad thing, it seems to be more acceptable for a woman to dominate her husband, and they're not seen bad. But when a man does it, it's like, oh, I can't believe he talked to that kind of
We
way.
never tell the man, get out.
Yeah.
We never tell him that he should leave, that he should not be in this situation, because we feel like he's, macho and you should be able to handle it. You toughen up, man up or something like that. I've even seen it where little boys are hitting the chest and they're told to man up.
Yeah.
Because they're crying about something that bothered them in their heart, and they get hit in the chest and say, man that all the way up. Well, what does that mean? Because to me, that's abuse.
It is.
And then that child grows up and it feels as though he's not able to express himself, and then it's just a continual of abuse that's passed on to me.
I would say to your audience that are listening, if you have a husband that is soft-spoken and things are well with him, just love the man. Love him. Don't do to him what you want done to you. Trying to be married today is tough as it is.
It is.
And when you start doing those things, you're shifting the atmosphere. No, a man should be able to come home from his job and not feel that he can't go in the house. He got to sit in the garage 10 minutes to prepare to go into the house. Because
To woosa.
To woosa, because you're going to act a monkey when you go up in there. Or you always at him. That's abuse. That's,
And then it's also it's too much if you got to give him instructions on everything.
Yeah.
Some things you just need to let it you know, that's my favorite thing when I go to comparing things. You know, people will say, well, you know, let's chop this tree down. You chop that tree, I'll chop this tree. But for some reason, people feel like you ought to do it like I do it. As long as the tree come down, we shouldn't really care about how the tree came down. The tree came down. And if he chooses to do it this way, sometimes we women just need to hush and just let him cut it down the way he wants to cut it down and be done with it. Let him feel the accomplishment, because that's basically the buildup.
And praise him for doing it.
And praise him for bringing the tree down, because that's what you asked for, is for the tree to come down.
It may take him 2 days, but you know.
But give him 2 days. Can he have 2?
Yeah.
But sometimes in these situations with women who feel like they have to have a dominance over their male, they never give him the opportunity to think for himself, to move in his own movement, to come up with his own successes and failures.
But can I interject? There's another type of abuse that can come from a woman toward a man. It's the silent treatment, or the cutting off benefits.
Stop having physical
relationship because you're mad about something. Instead of talking to them about it, you go to that level.
Oh yeah.
That sets the enemy up.
Right.
To bring thoughts and situations in your home that don't have to be there.
Yeah.
Not justifying it, but a lot of times things happen because we're taking advantage of the person's kindness.
Right. I think that is, again, I go back to whoever proceeds in these ways, silent treatment. When I say silent treatment, I don't mean where you're taking time to ponder, because sometimes people have a moment. They need a moment just to think it through, not have, talk right off the bat, but they got to get their thoughts together. I'm talking about silent treatment as if it's a punishment to the person. You're using your no speaking to say, I know this is bothering you, and so I'm going to do this. That's what I'm talking about. And then we women, we're good for that toward a man. We can use the silent treatment. We can use sex as if it's a sugar cookie or something. And so we decide whether or not, like our men are, puppy dogs. Come on, jump for the. And I don't know about any other woman, but that is not appealing to have a man that you can dominate that way. To me, it is more of a turnoff to have a man that you can dominate. I just don't see the take on that. And so when I see it happening, I think to myself that one day this woman is going to outgrow this man. She is going to not want or respect him enough to be there.
And this find herself having a
20-80 thing going on, where you think, and this is the funny part, we've seen this. You'll have the gentle giant at home, and then you go out and get the knucklehead in the street, and this is the one that's abusing you in the street. And you got the gentle giant at home, and we've seen that.
And then you lose the gentle giant.
And now you're stuck with Bubba. So I think that men have to drop the stigma and start voicing it. It doesn't make them weak to me. I think it says a lot to their character to be able to stand up and say, I don't want this behavior. And I think, and I'll say this to men as well too, be okay with her response that she doesn't like the fact that you're taking a stand. Outside of physical abuse, if she's physically abusing you, I would say the same thing to you men. Get out. Leave her. Don't stay with her. If she picks up things and hits you with it, if she uses her hand to strike you, if she does any type of physical harm to you, I say get out, and get out tonight. Don't wait, because this is how freak accidents happen, and people end up dying. People end up hurt, harmed, and maimed, is from foolish, irresponsible movement of physical violence, and we don't take the time to consider that this is not a safe environment for me. And if you have children, then your children are watching the head of the house basically being battered by mom. And that is not a good look.
And that's why it's so important that the church take an active role in speaking on this subject matter and let women know we see you.
Right.
Let men know we see you. We always talk about the man, women, we see you.
Right.
And it's not man bashing, not women bashing. But if
Right.
this is what you're doing, it's not going to work.
Right.
You know, I advocate for any male, pastor, a minister, or a police chief. If you're in an abusive relationship with a wife, a significant other spouse, you need to get out of that.
Right.
It's not
not
safe.
good.
It's not good. It's not good.
And I'm one of those women that women who are in this position probably don't want to talk to me, because I would check that hard. And we mothers have a role to play too.
Yes.
We mothers, when we see our daughters in a dominant role over their husband, we need to check her. We need to tell her, get in your place, daughter, and maintain your role as a support and a helpmeet. Because biblically,
more than likely, she inherited that from her mother.
But that's the point.
Yeah.
The point is that that's where the cycle takes place.
Yes.
But a woman who has done this has got to know that down the road, now she sees her future.
Yeah.
And in her daughter, why would you want the same thing in your daughter that you have in you? See it and call it like it is. All we have to do is line it up with the Bible. If we line it up with the Bible, we won't have to worry about what is my role as a wife. You know, I always allude to you as an example of leading our family and being the head of our home. I have no problem saying that. I have no problem demonstrating that. I have no problem using you as an example of being the head of our home. And I think people, when they hear that, they automatically think that he makes all the decisions. You don't make all the decisions. The one thing about our relationship is that we have respect.
Yes.
In our relationship.
The kids know when they call.
Call mom.
Call your mom. What's your mom?
Call your mom.
Yeah, they call me, I already know. What do you want? What do you need?
But the thing is that before I make a decision, who do I call?
You communicate with me.
I call Dad. So we end up back at Dad's feet, even though they call Dad. I have to go back and I need to clarify, verify with Dad what we're supposed to be doing or where this family is supposed to be going. And I think that women miss that feeling as though they have to have a dominant role about their children, especially in our case, like we have a blended family.
Yes.
And so I still subject my biological children to their father.
Yeah.
But in these blended families, sometimes they don't.
And that's
they
the
feel
problem.
as though they have to protect that
Yeah.
little one from the dad or the husband. When in actuality, everybody in the house is subject to the head of the house. And when we find that women don't know how to first put themselves in that place, they won't put those daughters in that place, and they won't put those sons in that place to be subject to the head of the household. But I am grateful that you have taken that step forward to be open enough to tell or to speak on when you're in those positions, like a person of authority, and find yourself dominated or in abusive relationship where in the case that you've experienced verbal or just out of fear.
Well, even physical, because even at the time I would restrain the person and they call the police now still looking to take me to jail. Now, you know, I'm telling them what happened. It's just those things that happen.
Fear factor.
Fear factor. So you start thinking about, you know, when you put in the garage, how long can I sit here and prepare myself to go in here, and what do I need to say, what I need to do to defuse this bomb. In reality, I had to just get out of it, and I promised anybody, the only way you're going to be free from a situation like that, you got to go. That'll be good for somebody else.
Yeah. Well, I think that I'm going to appeal or give you opportunity to appeal to our listening audience of males. and tell them what they should do in situations where they feel physical violence. Now, this is physical violence because there is a difference. There are some things that can be worked out in therapy.
Yes.
Where people can go to therapists or counselors and work out dynamics in the family, or as a husband and wife, where there's this type of aggression going on, where the wife is aggressive toward the husband. I believe the same thing in the females, that there's some cases where this thing can be worked out in counseling. People can work these things out. But in the physical sense, we already know there's only one thing for both sides to do, male or female. If folk are hitting, I say get gone. But in the case where the wife may just be confused in her role, and the husband he's just a good guy, good giant, gentle giant kind of guy, or he's just laid back, and he just kind of lets his wife have it. He's, whatever you say, honey, that's fine. But she takes advantage of that leeway. What do you say to that male? Like, what advice would you give them?
Well, from my own personal experience, I would say just take the active role of being a man. What is a man? A man is an individual, male factor, who knows who he is and identifies of being a man. You're going to make errors. You're going to make mistakes. My biggest support to you would be, if you're in a physical abuse relationship, you need to leave. If it's just some things been said, elementary stuff, that's counseling. Get professional counseling. Outside the church. Church is good, but sometimes you need to go to a professional counselor to deal with some of these chemicals and dynamics that are going on, or history. And yet, at the same token, protect yourself. Because one thing about an abuser, if they are physically abusing, they're not going to stop. But they're just working out some dynamics of things being said. Hey, God can take care of that. God can take care of the abuser. But that sometimes you just got to look at the reality. You got to escape.
Yeah. And I agree that there's counseling for people in these, I call abusive relationships, where it's just you don't know quite what to say to your spouse and how to say. You may have been aggressively speaking to them or downrating them, and really a lot of that is just what's going on in that person. I always say when you have a person who's just always belittling people, they feel the need to stand on top of someone else in order to feel okay about who they are. It's really a lot going on in that person that something needs to be done. And so in those cases, there is great counseling out there. There are therapists out there who can help you all work out, family therapists that can help you work out some of these dynamics and get to a better place as a family. And then as the male factor, for you to take your rightful role, like you said, take your role. As you can't wait for her to hand it to you and say, you the man, go ahead and do what you.
Be the man.
Whether she agrees or not, you have to know who you are. And you are the head of the home. If she never acknowledges it, you have to know who you are and who God created you to be. And so I would say to the males as well, is to, you can't wait for someone to announce you as to who you are. You have to get that from within. You have to know that. And a lot of times people how when we name animals, when we see something on TV, we'll say, oh, that's a possum. But it wasn't a possum. You didn't really know what it was. And sometimes women, that's what we do. We will miss it by calling it something else. You're a man, regardless if she calls you something else. You don't become something else because that's what she calls you. You're what God said you are. God says you are man. And because of that also automatically gives you a set place with God. And just because she doesn't recognize it doesn't diminish you as to who you are. She just missed it. She missed who you are, and she's misunderstanding not only your role, but she's misunderstanding her role. And I know we have this little thing about the woman is the neck and the man is the head. Yeah. I don't want to even get into all of that. Yeah. All I know is this, is that the husband is the head, period. Yeah. And the wife is to be subject to the husband. She's his helpmeet. In other words, she is to assist him in his role as the head. And that's and so I don't know what that means, is support to him or whatever, but all I know is this: when you don't recognize who your husband is, when you don't recognize him for the man that he is, we can miss it. We become abusive, we can become aggressive, and we can become dominant over our husbands and set ourselves in a bad light and set him also in a bad light. And I want to say that if I ever get acting bad, you can pop my hand.
I just love you too.
That's what I knew you was going to do. Well, I thank you for coming on the show and share. Until we meet again next week, remember, no one is entitled to harm you, be it physical, mental, or spiritually. You have a right to take your life back. You have a right to stand up and be who you are. Be it the person that God has called you to be. Don't let anyone diminish you, and don't let anyone take a dominance over you that you haven't offered to them. And when I say offer it, I mean I freely submit myself to my husband, but it's my will, and it's not me out of fear of him that I submit myself. And so, husbands, love your wives. Wives, respect your husbands. Men, it's not a weakness to tell someone that you are hurt. If you are hurt, get some help. Ask for it. Seek counsel. Tell somebody. Don't live in silent shame. Until next week, we'll see you.
Who's that?
No one.
Give it here. Let me see. You are not going out with them. Okay?
No, look, come on. Look, I'll just go out for a bit.
I'm always going out every month.
No, I'm not.
You are.
A couple of times. So look.
Why are you coming close? Why are you coming close to me like that?
My phone, but look,
Why are you raising your hand towards me like that?
I'm not raising my
What's your
hand.
problem?
Look, come on, we're supposed to be.
No, you're raising your voice.
I'm not raising my voice.
No, don't.
She deserves better.
Yeah.
She's leaving.
She's probably too scared.